Have you ever sat in a quiet room, looked around, and realized, for the first time in your life, that you're completely alone? No one asking what's for dinner. No footsteps in the hallway. Just silence, the kind that feels both peaceful and a little bit heavy. That was me on my first night living alone at 80. After my husband passed, and the kids got busy with their own families, the house suddenly felt too big. Every chair, every framed photo, every corner held a memory, and for a while, I thought happiness had left along with the noise. People often told me, you should move in with your kids, or you'd be safer at a senior home. But something inside me said, no. I needed to learn what it meant to be with myself again. So, I made a decision to live alone. Not because I didn't love my family, but because I wanted to understand if happiness was still possible when you wake up to quiet mornings and eat dinner by yourself. And I'll tell you, it taught me more about life, love, and peace than I ever expected. The first thing I learned was that being alone and feeling lonely are not the same thing. At first, I thought they were identical. The quiet made me uncomfortable. I'd turn on the TV just to fill the air. I'd keep the radio running even when I wasn't listening. It was like I was afraid of silence. But one morning, I remember sitting by the window, holding my cup of tea, and watching the sunlight hit the garden. I realized something: the world hadn't gotten smaller. I had. I'd been surrounding myself with noise just to avoid feeling my own thoughts. That morning, I decided to stop running from the silence. I turned everything off and just listened. The birds. The sound of wind against the curtains. My own breathing. It was peaceful, and for the first time, I felt a sense of calm I hadn't felt in years. That's when it hit me: loneliness comes from being disconnected, not from being alone. And connection doesn't always come from people, sometimes it comes from life itself. Once I started enjoying my own company, I noticed how much beauty I'd been missing. I began taking small walks every evening. I'd nod at neighbors, smile at strangers, and slowly, those walks became my favorite part of the day. I started greeting the same faces: a man walking his dog, a woman watering her flowers, and without realizing it, I became part of something again. I wasn't the old lady who lived alone. I was me, still living, still curious, still growing. But I'll be honest, it wasn't easy at first. There were moments that tested me, especially at night. Nights can be cruel when you live alone. The house creaks, the mind wanders, and sometimes memories sneak up when you least expect them. There were evenings when I sat at the table and whispered, "I wish you were here," to my late husband. And I'd cry, not because I was weak, but because I was human. What I learned, though, was that tears aren't a sign of sadness, they're a form of cleansing. Every tear washed away a bit of fear, a bit of longing, until one day, I could sit in the same chair, in the same quiet house, and smile instead of ache. Because I realized something powerful: happiness doesn't mean having everyone around you. It means making peace with what's around you right now. Another thing I discovered living alone is that independence brings dignity. You don't realize how many things you can do until you stop depending on others. Changing a light bulb, fixing a curtain, paying your bills, these might sound like small things, but at 80, they become victories. Every time I figured something out on my own, I felt a little prouder. Not because it was perfect, but because it reminded me that I'm still capable, still valuable, still alive. People sometimes look at older folks living alone and think, "Oh, that's sad." But let me tell you, there's nothing sad about learning you can stand on your own 2 feet again. There's a deep kind of joy in proving to yourself that you're not done yet. Of course, I still love when my children visit. The laughter, the food, the hugs, it fills my heart. But when they leave, I no longer feel empty. I feel grateful. Because I've learned that my happiness doesn't depend on who's sitting at the table, it depends on what's in my heart. And speaking of the heart, it's amazing how it heals when you give it space to breathe. Living alone forced me to slow down and listen to myself. What did I really want from the rest of my life? What makes me smile now that the big responsibilities are gone? For the first time, I started painting again. I hadn't picked up a brush since my 40s. I started cooking new recipes just for fun, even if it was only for me. I started writing little notes to myself, things like, "You did great today," or "You made it through another morning." Silly? Maybe. But those little moments became my anchors. They reminded me that joy isn't something you wait for, it's something you create. And here's the beautiful truth I discovered: living alone doesn't mean being unloved. It means choosing yourself after years of choosing everyone else. It means finally giving your heart the rest it deserves, without guilt, without noise, without rushing to please others. It means realizing that peace is not something someone else gives you, it's something you decide to keep. The funny thing is, once I found peace within, the people around me started treating me differently. My children stopped worrying so much. They saw that I was happy, strong, content. I think it even inspired them to see that happiness doesn't end when you hit 80. It just changes shape. And if you're watching this, maybe wondering whether you could handle living alone, I want to tell you this: you can. You really can. Not only that, but you might find a version of happiness you never knew existed. A quiet, grounded kind of happiness, the kind that doesn't depend on anyone else to keep it alive. Now that I've learned to find comfort in solitude and strength in independence, something deeper began to unfold, something that changed how I see love, aging, and what it means to truly live. If you're still watching and feel that these insights are meaningful, please type number 2 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I warmly invite you to do so, and don't forget to turn on the bell, so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos designed to uplift, inform, and inspire. Your support truly means a lot. It's what keeps us going and allows us to continue sharing thoughtful, helpful content just for you. Now, let's continue this journey together. As the days turned into weeks, I began to notice something unexpected. The more time I spent alone, the more I started to rediscover myself. For years, my identity had been wrapped up in being a wife, a mother, a grandmother. My life was about taking care of everyone else. And don't get me wrong, I wouldn't trade those years for anything. But after everyone was gone and the house grew quiet, I had to face a question I hadn't asked in decades: who am I when I'm not taking care of anyone else? That question scared me at first. It's easy to get lost when your roles disappear. For a while, I felt like a book with all the pages turned blank. But slowly, little by little, I began writing new chapters. I started asking myself what made me happy, not 40 years ago, not 10 years ago, but now, in this very moment. It's funny how simple things can light up your days when you give them a chance. A good cup of coffee. A morning walk. Watching the sunrise without having to rush anywhere. Listening to your favorite song and actually dancing, even if no one's watching. There's something incredibly freeing about living alone and realizing you can do whatever you want, whenever you want. You don't have to cook dinner at 6 or wait for someone else's schedule. You don't have to worry about being judged for eating dessert before dinner or watching old movies until midnight. It's your time, your rules. And that freedom feels like youth all over again. Not in your body, maybe, but in your spirit. Still, it's not always easy. There are moments when the silence becomes too loud, when the evenings stretch longer than they should, and when you wish someone was there to share a laugh or a story. That's when I learned one of the most important lessons of all: you have to make an effort to stay connected. Living alone doesn't mean isolating yourself. It means choosing how and when to connect. For me, that meant reaching out to old friends I'd lost touch with, joining a local community class, even volunteering at the library. I found joy in small interactions, chatting with the barista at my favorite cafe, waving to the neighbors during my walks, or sharing recipes with other seniors online. Each little moment reminded me that happiness grows when you plant yourself in life, not when you hide from it. One day, I met another woman about my age at the park. We started talking about our lives, how she'd lost her husband years ago, how her kids lived far away. We laughed about the small challenges of living alone, like trying to open a jar or reaching the top shelf. Before I knew it, we were meeting every week for coffee. That simple friendship became one of the most beautiful surprises of my later years. You see, when you're open to life, it finds ways to fill your days with new faces and new joys, even when you least expect it. Something else I discovered was how powerful routine can be when you live by yourself. It might sound dull, but having small daily rituals gives you structure and purpose. Every morning, I make my bed, open the curtains wide, and water my plants. Then I sit down with a journal and write one thing I'm grateful for. Sometimes it's something big, like hearing from my daughter, and sometimes it's as small as the smell of rain. Those little moments of gratitude taught me that happiness isn't a grand event. It's a collection of tiny, ordinary miracles. Over time, I realized that solitude isn't a punishment, it's a teacher. It teaches you to listen, not just to the world, but to yourself. When life gets busy, we drown out our own thoughts with noise, distraction, or obligation. But in silence, you start to hear the quiet truth inside you, what you really want, what really matters, and what you're finally ready to let go of. And here's something I never expected: I started feeling lighter. Without all the noise and the constant need to keep up with others, I began to release old worries I didn't even know I was carrying. The fear of aging. The guilt of not being needed anymore. The sadness of things I couldn't change. All of it slowly melted away, replaced by something far more peaceful: acceptance. Living alone taught me that peace isn't something that just shows up one day. It's something you create, moment by moment, with patience and kindness toward yourself. But I also learned that peace and joy grow when you have something to look forward to. It could be as simple as baking your favorite cookies, tending to a garden, or calling a friend on Sunday afternoons. For me, it became painting. I hadn't painted in over 40 years, but one day I bought a small set of brushes and a few colors, and just started. The first few tries weren't great, I was rusty, but I didn't care. The process itself made me feel alive again. Every brushstroke reminded me that I was still capable of creating something beautiful. That feeling, of creating, of learning, of doing, is the heartbeat of happiness. You know, people often assume that the older you get, the less there is to discover. But the truth is, there's always something new, a new hobby, a new friendship, a new way of seeing yourself. Living alone showed me that aging isn't about losing life. It's about learning how to live it differently. More quietly, more intentionally, more honestly. One evening, as I sat on the porch watching the sunset, I realized something profound. I wasn't afraid anymore. Not of loneliness, not of time, not even of the future. Because I'd learned how to be enough, just me, in that quiet moment, surrounded by the colors of the sky. I didn't need anyone to fill the space. The space itself was full of memories, of gratitude, of peace. And that's what living alone at 80 really taught me, that happiness isn't something that happens to you. It's something you build, one small act of courage at a time. Courage to face the quiet. Courage to try new things. Courage to be content with your own company. Now that I had found comfort in solitude and rediscovered my sense of self, something even deeper began to emerge, a new understanding of love, aging, and what it truly means to live a fulfilled life in your later years. When I first decided to live alone, I thought it would be a lesson in practicality, learning how to manage the house, handle chores, and stay safe. But it turned out to be something much deeper. It became a lesson in love, not romantic love, not even family love, but a quiet, steady love for life itself. It's funny, the way solitude changes how you see love. For most of my life, love was about giving time, giving care, giving energy. I was always pouring into others, as most of us do. But when I started living alone, I realized I had spent so much time giving that I'd forgotten how to receive. I didn't know how to sit still and let life love me back. The sunshine on my face, the laughter of neighbors, the warmth of a cozy blanket, those were small, ordinary forms of love I had overlooked. One morning, I woke up before dawn. The house was completely silent, and I almost reached for the TV remote out of habit. But then I stopped. I sat there in bed and just listened, the soft hum of the refrigerator, the distant sound of a bird beginning to sing. And in that stillness, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: contentment. Pure, simple contentment. It wasn't excitement or joy or passion. It was deeper than that. It was the realization that I didn't need anything else to be complete. That moment changed me. I started noticing beauty in the smallest things, the way sunlight moved across my kitchen floor, how the air smelled after rain, how good it felt to take a slow walk without hurrying anywhere. Life wasn't passing me by, it was inviting me to notice it. And that, I think, is the greatest gift solitude can give you, awareness. When you live alone, you learn to pay attention. You learn to feel life again. Something else began to happen, too. My relationships started changing, for the better. When you live alone, people often think you'll become distant or lonely. But in my case, it was the opposite. I started showing up differently. I wasn't calling my children out of worry or guilt anymore. I was calling because I genuinely wanted to share joy. Instead of expecting them to fill my time, I wanted to give them peace, knowing I was happy and content. That shift changed everything. Our conversations became lighter. There was no tension, no sense of obligation, just love, flowing naturally again. I also became more patient. When you spend time with yourself, you begin to understand how fragile everyone really is, how everyone carries their own worries, their own exhaustion. My children weren't neglecting me, they were just living their lives, the same way I once did. And when I let go of resentment, I made room for compassion. I stopped needing them to be my happiness, and ironically, that made us closer. Living alone at 80 taught me that happiness isn't a single emotion. It's a collection of quiet choices. Choosing peace over frustration. Choosing acceptance over control. Choosing gratitude over loneliness. Every day, I had the choice to focus on what was missing or on what was still beautifully present, and when I chose the latter, everything felt lighter. Of course, not every day was easy. There were days when the walls felt too quiet, when I missed laughter and noise. But I learned how to meet those moments with gentleness instead of fear. I'd talk to myself the way I'd talk to an old friend, kindly, softly. I'd say, it's okay to feel this way. It's okay to miss people. It just means your heart is still full. Then I'd get up, make myself a warm meal, or step outside for some fresh air. Little acts of care, done consistently, became my medicine. They reminded me that even when life feels still, I am still living. And that's the beautiful irony. The older you get, the more you realize happiness isn't loud or dramatic. It's quiet. It's steady. It's in the routine that grounds you, the memories that comfort you, the hope that still flickers in your heart. You don't need to chase it anymore, you just need to recognize it when it's there. One of the most freeing realizations I've had since living alone is that being alone isn't a failure. Society often paints solitude as something sad or pitiful, like it's proof that you've been left behind. But I see it differently now. Living alone is an act of courage. It's saying, I trust myself. I can take care of myself. I can still find meaning and joy, even here, even now. That's strength, the quiet, dignified strength. And if you're someone who's afraid of living alone, or already doing it but struggling to find peace, let me tell you this, you are stronger than you think. The silence that feels heavy at first will one day feel like comfort. The emptiness will make space for new experiences, new connections, new light. You won't just survive, you'll thrive. You'll laugh again, you'll love again, you'll live again, in ways you didn't think were possible. I've learned that life doesn't stop giving you lessons just because you've reached a certain age. If anything, it teaches you more about acceptance, about grace, about the beauty of simply being. I used to think happiness was about having people around, or having things to look forward to. Now I know happiness is about being present. Sitting quietly and realizing that, right here, right now, you have everything you need to feel whole. And maybe that's what aging gracefully truly means, not fighting to hold on to what was, but learning to embrace what is. Not fearing time, but honoring it. Every wrinkle, every quiet morning, every moment of peace, they're all part of a story still unfolding. So, what did living alone at 80 teach me about happiness? That it's not about avoiding loneliness. It's about finding peace within it. It's not about waiting for love to come from others, it's about becoming the source of love yourself. It's not about how much time you have left, it's about how deeply you choose to live the time that remains. If you've made it this far, I want to thank you, because it means you care about growing, about understanding, about living with intention. And maybe you've been wondering if it's too late to find happiness again. It's not. It's never too late. As long as you're breathing, there's still joy waiting to be discovered. If this message touched your heart, I'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts or your own story in the comments below. I promise, you're not alone. And if you found comfort in this, please give this video a like and subscribe for more conversations like this, gentle, honest, and full of life. Here's to us, learning, loving, and finding happiness in every chapter, no matter our age. Because being 80 doesn't mean the story ends. It just means the story gets quieter, and somehow, even more beautiful.